We're back. This is, I was thinking, oftentimes I think of doing professional courses, like streaming, from, people paying, and like doing it from Mayapur, but it's unfortunate, isn't it? I mean, if you're not paying, it's like, you just go, oh, it's the internet. I paid, and now I just missed a half hour of my class. That's not good. So, when you hear about these higher stages, then you're learning about where you will come to, or where you're supposed to come to. And you might say, well, why learn about higher stages when I'm on a lower stage? One of the reasons is some of the attributes of the higher stages exist in minute degrees on the lower stages. So what we're talking about, you might say, well, I sometimes feel attachment for Krishna. Sometimes I feel taste. Sometimes I feel steadiness. I feel ecstasy sometimes. So it's true. You're getting a little bit of that. You're getting a little bit of what is on the higher stage. So you can recognize there is some asakti, some bhava, some ruchi. But it's just not complete. It's immature. And when you understand that these stages are awaiting you, and not only you understand that they're awaiting you, but that's where you're supposed to go. That's where you're supposed to end up. That's what Prabhupada has come to give. It gets very exciting because you realize, when you understand all these stages, that this is what Prabhupada wants to give us. This is where he wants us to end up. And then you realize the value of what Prabhupada gave. He's actually giving me this, and this is possible. That some of you have heard about Raganuga Bhakti, and Raganuga Bhakti is where you become attracted to a particular resident of Vrindavan, and you start to follow in their footsteps, and you want to develop the moods and feelings and bhakti that they have. It's still a practice of sadhana. And so you can see in the stage of asakti that naturally would develop. Sometimes devotees say, well, when can you practice Raganuga Bhakti, or do I have to practice it? And you can see at the stage of asakti, it's just naturally going to be there, because you're already showing inclination towards a certain rasa and certain devotees in the lila. So, if you're worried about Raganuga Bhakti and when it's coming and if it's coming, that's part of your answer. Because sometimes devotees say, well, should I try to awaken it? Because we say Raganuga Bhakti is awakened by a greed for a particular relationship. And this is one answer, that even if it doesn't awaken, it will awaken naturally in the stage of asakti, because it'll just be your nature. So, I want to read something. This is from Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. And he has a book called Madhurya Kadamini, and in the book he describes each stage. And now he's describing asakti. After this, when ruchi, which has bhajan, hearing and chanting and other devotional activities, as its object of relish, reaches extreme depth and makes Krishna the object of relish. So like I can say, kirtan, hearing and chanting, I love to hear and chant, that's a symptom of ruchi. It's like hard to stop hearing and chanting. You just love it. You love to serve, you love to go on parikramas, you love to hear. You love everything about Krishna consciousness. But the relationship, that personal relationship, is lacking. So when it develops from there, then it's called asakti. When your object of relish reaches extreme depth and makes Krishna the object of relish, this is called asakti, or attachment. At the stage of asakti, the creeper of bhakti bears clusters of buds. So, the analogy that bhakti is a creeper, and now starting to bud. So it's like I don't know, the teeth are coming in, you're growing up, your teeth are coming in, something. It's like they're signs that, okay, this flower it's gonna grow. So it's just one step away from bhava, which is the real flowering of love. That's pretty exciting, isn't it? You see those buds? These buds will in no time become flowers at the stage of bhava, and then fruits at the stage of prema. So that analogy, buds, flowers, and fruits. I don't know if you've ever seen an orange tree, but an orange tree, when it buds, it has little flowers that look like jasmine flowers. And they grow into oranges. It's interesting, isn't it? So they start as little buds, flowers, and then oranges. So buds are asakti, flowers, bhava, and then prema is what? Fruit. The statement that ruchi has bhajan as the object and asakti has the Lord as the object is a designation signifying proportionate quantity. Actually, both ruchi and asakti have both components as objects, but by less intensity. Because obviously, when I said it's just the taste, Krishna becomes the object, you're probably thinking, but I think of Krishna. So what he's describing here is the intensity with which the attachment, right? So it may be divided to some degree between directly the relationship with Krishna and the attachment and taste for service. But in the Sakti, obviously the taste is there, but it's overwhelmed by the attachment, or the taste is a byproduct of the attachment. So I'm attached to Krishna. And what does it mean to be attached to Krishna? That's pretty difficult to think about or do anything other than what Krishna wants, because you're so attached. Like you could like serving someone and not be that attached to them, right? Because you like what they stand for, but personally maybe. So this is personal relationship. Sounds funny because you would think it would be the same. So he's saying the difference between asakti and ruchi is just the intensity of the attachment. So they give it another stage. It's actually the same stage, but they give it another stage so they can distinguish it. As ruchi is like taste with not a lot of attachment, and asakti is ruchi with a lot of attachment. Does that make sense? Actually, both ruchi and asakti have both components as objects, but by less intensity, in taking bhajan as object, and greater intensity in taking the Lord as the object. Asakti becomes distinguishable from ruchi. Asakti polishes the mirror of the heart to such a condition that a reflection of the Lord may suddenly be visible here. That means you're starting to get an inclination of your rasa. Before the stage of asakti, the devotee, realizing that his mind has been overpowered by material objects and desires, after putting forth deliberate effort, withdraws his mind and fixes it on the Lord's form, qualities, and activities. In the stage of asakti, however, absorption of the mind of the Lord is automatic. In other words, before you come to asakti, you're making an effort to think of Krishna. But on asakti, there's no effort. The attachment is there. It's just happening naturally. Like once a devotee asked Prabhupada, should we be thinking of the Leelas when we chant our japa? Prabhupada said it's artificial because when you reach a certain stage, and it's described here, you naturally will think of it. Think of the Leela. It's natural. You don't have to try. If you love somebody, do you have to try to think of them? No. So that's the idea. So that's why it's saying it's very close to the stage of love, because the attachment to Krishna is becoming very strong. In the stage of asakti, however, absorption of the mind in the Lord is automatic without effort. A devotee, even at the stage of nistha, cannot discover how his mind sometimes withdraws from the Lord and fixes itself on material affairs. The quality of attachment, such that the mind sometimes withdraws from material topics and absorbs itself in topics of the Lord, is not seen in one who has not attained the stage of asakti. This is, however, characteristic of the devotee who has attained the stage of asakti. So until we come to the stage of asakti, the mind is not going to naturally be drawn to Krishna. You're always going to have to kind of push it to one degree or another. Maybe you have to push it into the hearing and chanting process, and the hearing, chanting, and process does everything. Or you're just going to have to push it somehow or other. But in the Sakti, there's no pushing. Wouldn't that be nice? Don't you think it's worth all the effort that you're putting into Krishna consciousness to get to this position? Yes?
So in a Shakti, you are never not attracted to Krishna.
No, and sometimes you actually kind of detach a little bit from the material because you're like a little out of it.
You never forget Krishna.
Yeah, you're a little out of it also. Yeah, you're a little transcendental. Sometimes you have to readjust because you can be a little too aloof. You're starting, It's said you're coming to the stage of Shuddha Sattva. So you're about to transcend the modes of nature. So, and the interesting thing is that you have to go through all these processes to become qualified to enter Leela. It's like Krishna's not going to let you enter the Leela if there's no love, there's no attachment, there's no thinking. It wouldn't be, I mean, like imagine in your family, you're the mother, you have children, and you're thinking of adopting another child, but the other child doesn't really like you. How's that going to work? And if you go back to the spiritual world and you find there are people up there that they're really only on the stage of nista. They're kind of battling, I don't know if I'm going to stay here or not. This is kind of tough, I left a good job at, Microsoft, and I came to Goloka, but, I have unfulfilled desires. That would be like total insanity. I mean, even when devotees say that in ISKCON, it's upsetting, right? So Krishna is not going to allow anyone into rasa who's not qualified. And so you can see how you're becoming purified through these stages. Each stage is just a little closer to love, a little less attached. There's still reactions from offenses on this stage, from namaparad and other things that have to be cleansed. So there's still some impurity, but it's like we were saying, each stage is doubly potent. It's twice as powerful as the last. Obviously, it's easier as you advance, but you see, if you understand the nature of bhava and prema, in the explanations the acharyas give, they describe it in terms of how fixed your mind is on Krishna, ultimately coming to samadhi. So then it'll make more sense. How absorbed your mind is. These are symptoms of love. More absorbed, more absorbed, more absorbed. So that's why it's using this example, that it's still, when they say sometimes your mind goes away, whereas in Sakti it's naturally attracted, it's not that your mind in ruchi isn't there, but sometimes it goes away and sometimes you have to force it, where here it's like magnetic. It's just naturally attracted. In another sense, you can say everything's a test of our sincerity and our devotion, every minute of every day. So you can look at it like Krishna created material energy as a testing ground. So it was a test at every moment. And if you turn your back on Krishna, you're going to realize the result of doing that. So it's like, you turn your back on Krishna, and Maya comes, and then all I would say is, well, what were you expecting? Something better? It's like, I turned my back on Krishna. I wasn't expecting it to be this bad. Well, you've turned your back 1,000,000 times and it was bad every time. So why you expected it would be different this time? So, we're supposed to learn from that. This is what happens when you turn your back on Krishna. Right? You get Maya. It's just how it works. So, is it a test? You could use that word. Is it ignorance? You could use that word. Did I blow it? You could use that word.
Ultimately, it's like catching it in the stages where it's like a flicker before it even manifests as
Yeah.
thoughts, words, actions.
Well, the point is that as a devotee, you're supposed to learn not to play with Maya. You're supposed to learn that fire burns. So every time you stick your hand in fire, it's going to burn, whether you learned your lesson or not. And, maybe at some point you get illusions. You think, well, maybe this time it won't burn. Fire looks good. Let me see. Let me test it. Have you ever done that? Like, did something that didn't work and brought you out of Krishna consciousness, and you did it again like a year later just because you felt like it? Thinking, well, maybe this time I won't fall into Maya. That's stupid. So Prabhupada in his books is trying to help us, be smart. So I would rather look at it rather a test from Maya. Just stay it's a reality test, a reality check. That I put my finger in fire and that's what happened. And just a reminder that that was stupid. Right? Okay, so we'll have to end here because it's time to end, which is a good reason to end, right? And we got some time for you on Facebook, but not much time. You'll have to fly here to Mayapur, and then you'll get the whole time. But we did record it. It's on here, both classes, and it will be uploaded on my SoundCloud. This is why I record. Well, one of the reasons I record is a backup. And it's audio only and less megabytes. Okay. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Go Brahmanandi. Hari Hari.
Thank you very much for doing your Monday class here.
Oh yeah, it's better.
The internet
Easier.
is so unreliable, and
Yeah,
my
it
teaching
is.
doesn't finish till 3, so it means
It's a good location. Huh?